here. This is called, I had sent you, I think, there's something about suggested reading, Mind Probe Hypnosis. This is my 1984 that I got from Irene, and she signed it, my copy. I have found it to be most useful. Every class that she taught at any conference, I went and I sat and I listened. And it was very interesting because she was an osteopathic physician. And what happened to her and how she developed this was because she was seeing patients coming for the same thing over and over again. And she picked up a little book on hypnosis, and she had a friend. She said, let's hypnotize each other. I mean, that's how she started. So she's really a pioneer, and also she did not believe that you should have really long inductions and drawn out for 20, 30 minutes. So both she and Dave Ellman have very smooth, quick ways to get to a person into a nice, comfortable, relaxed state where you can do some work. And I must tell you, I have found that people can, I've said this and I'll say it again, light, medium, or deep trance. How deep is the ocean? Does it matter? If they're in trance, they're in trance. And sometimes it can be what some people say, oh, that's a light state. But as you go on to the work, it deepens. And you just have to trust that if the person comes to you, you said that you do hypnotherapy or you do hypnoanalysis, they come to you, they're already prepared to go into trance. And so when they come to the door, in fact, they come into the entrance, don't they? That's what the door says, right? Entrance. You're coming in, come right in. Oh, I'll put my little watch up here. So she was really helpful because when she wrote this book, the big people out there, big people in hypnosis, did not believe in regression. And she said, that's poppycock. You have to get back to the original source of the problem in order to heal it. She's been healing people and giving them pills and stuff. She was doing the same thing. She said it's like putting somebody comes to you and they've got a sore, and you put some ointment on and put some gauze on it, and they come back, and so then you put some more ointment and some more gauze. She said you need to excise it, excise the wound, let the pus drain out, and then the healing can begin. And she was talking from a medical point of view. And I thought, oh boy, this is good. I was really glad to hear this because I was always already doing the Ellman, and here I have a DO agreeing with me, so to speak. So this is Irene, and I have loved her. She was president of IMDHA at one point in time. Some people liked her, some didn't, and I didn't care whether they liked her or they didn't. Just follow her directions, and you're probably going to be safe. Another book that I recommended to you, and you can look this over, is The Spiritual Universe. This is a newer edition. It's from Fred Alan Wolf. He is a physicist, one physicist's vision of spirit, soul, matter, and self. And you can look through here in case you want to order it. That's why I brought my copy along. He had a first edition, which will be in the books next week, that are for sale if Gordon doesn't sneak it out ahead of time. Anyway. Wide Awake, Clear-Headed, and Refreshed is Medical Hypnoanalysis in Action, and it is by Ryan Elliott, who is a medical hypnotist. He went to the training, and so not my training. He went to the doctors who teach this because, of course, they wanted their territory, and so they have a whole medical hypnoanalyst organization. And he wrote this book. It's very, very good. This is my copy, but it might be one that you would want as a backup to what you're going to learn. All right? And then there's this book, Leave Something to God, also produced by Ryan Elliott. Leave Something to God, The Religious Aspects of Hypnosis, because it is Brian's rationale. It's written by William Jennings Bryan, who is the author of the course that we're going to do. And it's wonderful. It's very easy to read. It's very understandable. And of course, it comes from a Christian perspective. You have to know that. But it helps you to understand what this is about and what he believed in, because he was an MD, he was a psychiatrist, he also was a deacon in his church, and he was a lawyer. The guy had it all covered. Man's law, God's law, and everything in between. And he knew it well. In fact, William Jennings Bryan is F. Lee Bailey. Remember who F. Lee Bailey was? And OJ's? Well, he had trained F. Lee Bailey. And he had trained him in the art of jury selection. So he was a very, very versatile kind of guy. And Bailey was the one who was called to help select the jury for the Simpson trial so that Simpson would win. And he did an excellent job, didn't he? Okay. So this is something else that you may want to have because it deals with this study. I ask you to do regression therapy to get this book. I don't know whether you get volume 1, but volume 2. And I ask you to read one case history in chapter 1 and one in chapter 2, and then write me a paper and then give your learning. What did you learn out of doing this as a prerequisite to coming to this class? So I'm going to ask you right now, before I go on, is to just go around the room and what did you get out of it? What did you get out of doing that assignment ahead of time? You were last one in the door. You get first. Bilal.
One more coming.
I know, that's probably Clarice. Bilal, what did you learn out of just that? Those? I have your paper. I'm not going to read it. I just
Okay.
but you can read your paper. I told you.
I'll just, case in chapter 1, I did case 2 with James Burke. And it was, she experienced, it was filled with terror, which led to a misunderstanding of his color for her entire life.
Going to have to speak up now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jane's infant perception of her birth experience was that her mother was angry with her, did not want her, and attempted to get rid of her by preventing her from being born. And if I remember correctly, the midwife tied her legs together. Yeah. She didn't want her to come until the doctor got there. And so I guess during the birth experience, Jane felt that the mother didn't want her to come out. And the mother was angry, but not at her, but Jane perceived it as her. She was angry at the midwife for tying her legs together, preventing the birth. After she was born, Jane's mother expressed a great deal of love for her, which created a love-hate relationship and a great deal of distrust and anger toward her mother and others. Jane couldn't understand why she was angry with her and tried to kill her, prevent her from coming. And then after she gets born, the mother is just showering with love and everything. She is completely, you hate me at 1 minute, now you love me now. What's going on? So, but basically her perception during birth and the utero was, as I said, it was just her perception. But it wasn't an adult perception, it wasn't true, so she didn't have the facts.
What did you get out of it? What did you learn out of it?
I learned that what I didn't realize, that how important it is, and that as not even being born, you can have an experience, and it carries over. That was like I read that, oh my goodness, that can account for a lot of things that we experience now, that goes on now. In later life, and we don't understand, why do I feel this way? Why do I don't like that, but I don't know why I don't like it, And so I think that's one of the main things I got out of that case study.
So that pre-birth and birth and birthing itself can have a definite symptom
Yes.
later on in life for some particular behavior.
Yes.
Okay, good. Let's give him a round of applause. All right, Nicole?
Similar to what he said, but I had always had maybe the misconception that a lot of issues that we find that we carry through our adulthood may have been brought from a past life, and still is true. Having kids, and I had a lot of stressful events in my life while I was pregnant with all of my children, really opened my eyes and kind of scared me in a way that I didn't realize that how much, I knew it impacted them, but how much it could impact them and be hard to reverse. Because after birth, you know, the issues that I was having as an adult, being pregnant, I would have never wanted or thought would carry on to my child as much as it did. And it kind of opened my eye, it kind of scared me a little bit. And made me look at some of the things that they do or how they act because they're young. You know, I have two 8-year-olds and a 9-year-old. And wow, is some of that due to the stress that I was in while I was pregnant? That's what I got from all of the case studies. I really didn't think about how much that impacted and would stay with them as much as past life.
Okay, all right, let's give Nicole a round of applause. All right,
Similar to the others, the case studies in chapter 1 and 2 that I selected were Anna in the first one and Saul in chapter 2. And like the two of you, it makes complete sense that an infant wouldn't be able to differentiate or distinguish between the mother's experiences and its own, but it never really occurred to me as clearly until I read that. And it made so much sense, and it made me really wonder, like in terms of clients that I see, and core beliefs that they carry with them through life. Maybe it's not just situational or recent, maybe it's prenatal, maybe it's in utero. And the idea that you could have an experience or a belief or an interpretation prenatally and then have experiences that reinforce that throughout life was very interesting. The other thing that I thought was interesting was sort of the fluidity of time, that you could, like in terms of the hypnotherapy, you could start at one place and go backwards or go forwards. And in reading the cases, sort of the idea of the thematic connections between lifetimes, I thought was so intriguing. So it was all just very intriguing and interesting, and that's kind of what I got out of it.
so it was well worth having regression therapy by Winifred Blake Lucas in your library. Good. All right, let's give her a round of applause. All right, Mark?
Well, I came to it from a different angle because I wanted to see the styles, and I picked two different practitioners, a psychotherapist and Dr. Hickman. And I also was looking at what really the clients were bringing to it. What I got out of it the most is the Ericksonian concept that every client has within them what they need to get better. It's just we have to lead them there, and there's so many different ways of leading. The one psychotherapist who had a horrible regression technique in my amateur opinion, but as coming to it as an attorney, there was a lot of leading, a lot of tainting of memory, suggestion. And I think, even though there was a lot of that, and the client picked up on it and went with it, in the end result, they still got better. The question is, how long does the getting better take? But they still got better. And then there's Dr. Hickman, but a real nice, clean, direct questioning. Sure, you can focus the client where they need to go a little quicker without suggesting what they're experiencing. And then you have a real nice resolution there. It's a matter of taking the client back in what I got from this, letting them look at it, and then reevaluate it with the adult mind that they have when they're seeing you and their adult experience. And it's about being more a Sherpa than a pharmacist or a chemist. And I think that's what I got out of it.
Thank you, Mark. All right, Deborah?
Now me, what they said. It's it's very interesting to me how we learn with, at all stages. And I found it extremely interesting with in utero, even at time of conception, memories that can be found. And also, well, and explain to my dad once about hypnosis and how it works. And I was trying to use an example of my mom who has a fear of abandonment. And I said, and I have a fear of abandonment. And he said, well, why would you? Nobody ever left you. And I said, I learned that, Dad. At some point in being conceived and being birthed and throughout my life, somehow I learned that symptom. And that's why you use hypnosis, to explore whether that's a legitimate feeling that came from me, or whether I received it from my mother, or from conversations, or from feelings that I was subjected to.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I found that very fascinating, that of proof right there that can happen. And also, as Mark said, that it's intriguing that there's different styles. Everybody has their own style, and there's a baseline, but everybody adds a little of this or a little of that. And if you go into it with the true intent of helping somebody, and if they come to you with the true intent of healing, it gets done. It doesn't matter if you follow this exactly or that exactly. Between your as a hypnotherapist, you're facilitating and believing in the healing, and their need and will to heal. It happens. It comes together, and that's I think that's something that those of us, such as myself, that lack some confidence, can hold on to and know that I do what I do out of love, so healing will happen.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So, yeah.
Thanks, Debbie. Let's give her a round of applause. Now, Clarice has joined us.
I couldn't find you.
Okay, well now but this is the best lesson you ever had. You'll never lose us again.
I'll never drive 12 mile again because it's only 30 mile per hour. I'm just,
Whatever. All right. Clarice, we're discussing the pre-assignment, which you sent in, from regression therapy. Just briefly, what did you learn from the two case histories? That you don't have to recite what they were, but what did you get out of it? What
I
did you learn?
learned, first of all, that change does occur and is always in place. That when we are limiting our views, and that when we keep our minds closed to possibilities, we defeat our own purposes. That opening our minds to possibilities, whatever they may be, and letting them flow with the kind of peace and ease that life accords us, that we help our clients to become winners, and they become more aware of who they are. I also learned that when we have events occurring early in our lives, such as when in one case the child was caught in the birth canal, there are frustrations which develop that are unexplained. Then when the child enters life, those are kept there. And as I said in the information that I sent to you, I wonder, as a teacher, if there were occasions when I could have made it better for students by knowing this and finding a way. There wasn't a way to do it in the classroom, but there was a way that I could have found to reach a child who was caught in that kind of trauma, who couldn't be in a situation where it was too close or too tight or whatever, and there was this ongoing fear that started before birth and never was resolved. And I just wondered, what opportunities could I have given that I didn't give, although I did venture out a lot. I took chances, and that was good. In the other case, I found that recurring events have value. It is important for us to look at whatever is occurring and take some time out to pause rather than rushing through. It's necessary to look and survey what is there, but also what is not there, because unseen circumstances can present major problems that are not addressed, but can be easily resolved if we just knew the circumstances. So one of the main things that I learned was that talk is especially important. It's the best thing that people could do is to talk and communicate ideas in circumstances where they're free to do it. When they're not free to do it, it's best to try finding someone with whom you can talk and then ask that person to be silent. And I always say, whenever you have the word silent and unscramble the letters, if I am silent and I ask the person to unscramble the letters in silent, can you tell me what word it would change to? Listen. And so if I'm silent, I give that person a chance to listen. I listen, and if I'm silent and I listen and they talk, then I learn more. But sometimes we're so busy telling, we don't have time to listen. And listen is a vital skill. It's the primary item on my agenda.
Let's give Clarice a round of applause. Thank you. All right, now you're going to hear how William Jennings Bryan did it. When people come and they say, I have blah, 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 and he discovered and built an absolute technique, and he built it. He knew he was a contemporary, so to speak, of Jung and of Freud. He was a psychoanalyst. He was kind of the father of medical psychoanalysis. And the doctor that I learned from was one of his students, and also his name was Lyle Brooks of Edmond, Oklahoma, and he learned this, what I'm going to teach with you, or what I'm going to teach you. He learned that from Bryan. Bryan used to have clients up on stage, please and thank you. And there were only doctors and nurses, and eventually some psychologists, if he thought they deemed them worthy. I mean, he was very, very, well, he's very old school. But he was very, very particular because he wanted this information to be used in a way that would be beneficial for the clients. He was not one to just give them some kind of an affirmation they're supposed to say and everything would go away like magic. It doesn't happen that way. So Brooks took his training. Brooks was also, before I learned from him, had been one of the presidents of the Holistic Doctors Medical Association. So this is coming from, and when he sat down like this with our group, we were out in Nevada. He flew in there, and we all flew in from all over the United States to take the training. And he said, well, you're all doing hypnoanalysis, so I might as well teach you the right way. And that was it. I thought, okay. And I liked it because it was linear in its approach. It had beginning, a middle, and an ending, and I hope that you will see that as we go through. So I sent you some things in the, like the key concepts of hypnoanalysis notes, these kinds of things. I hope that you have kind of gone through that, just so you have an idea. Not that that's the end-all, be-all, but it certainly will be helpful for you to have that in your background. So I'd like you to open your syllabus to the first page. And I have a copy of the syllabus you have. I'm going to teach you from what I was given as a handout at that many years ago. And I still use it today. In fact, I have a client right now who's about my age who I'm going through. She has no idea how old I am, but maybe her daughter told her, I'm not sure. But it's very interesting because she came and she wanted to find out definite things. She had them in mind. She wanted to know why she's carried certain things all of her life. So people are never too old. By the way, I'm 78, so you all know. So people are never too old or too young. Now, unless you are skilled in working with children, I would suggest you don't work with them, because children are wonderful, and they have a particular way of like Clarice would probably be great with little people. I would not be great with little people because I haven't worked in that area. If you have people who are addicts and you're an addiction counselor, this is going to work out beautiful for you because you can see how it will all fit in. It's a program that can fit almost anything that comes along. So now that you've got your open to page 1, I will begin. The first thing I've asked you to do was to get 3 books. They were Love is Letting Go of Fear, and you may have a different cover than this. This was one I had in 1981. We are going to use that as part of homework assignment. Dr. Bryan and Dr. Brooks both gave homework assignments to their clients. Now what Brooks used is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. If you haven't read that, that's a really old, but you can get it, I'm sure, in used books. He used that because he wanted to educate the client. And this, and you're going to go through this yourself as we go through the class, helps to educate the client into healing. Because it says love is letting go of fear. And most people come. Something's fear-based, that's why they're there. And then the other book is From a Chicken to an Eagle, which is also based in the same way that Jan Paulsky's book is. And then the Dream Book by Betty Bethards, because we're going to do some dream analysis. I thought you needed to have a little bit of understanding of what dreams are about and go from there. And offering people suggestions that you give them at the end of your session. You can heal yourself or heal your body, either one by Louise Hay. That has wonderful things in it. It has the problem, whatever they come for, the probable cause, and the new thought pattern. In other words, a new way of thinking about themselves. So we'll just say they have acne. That could be not accepting the self, dislike of the self. And she suggests, I am a divine expression of life. I love and accept myself where I am right now. Well, that would be something that people could use, anybody could use. And it's just, when I got into this, they were really, 1980, they were really looking, it was mind-body medicine. And then it became mind-body-spirit medicine when we got into the 60s. But cancer, deep hurt, long-standing resentment, deep secret of grief, secret or grief eating away at the self, carrying hatreds, what's the use? And the new thought or the new thing, the affirmation you can give people at the end of trance is for them to repeat, I lovingly forgive and release all of the past. I choose to fill my world with joy. I love and approve of myself. Again, the approval of the self. So This is an older version, this is a newer version of that. This little book is what I got way back in 1980, see? Louise Hay grew a lot, you know, from this little tiny book, but I've got, here they are. It's the same thing, you know, it's overweight, insecurity, self-rejection, seeking love, protecting the body, trying to fulfill the self, fear of loss, stuffing feelings. I accept and love myself as I am. I am always secure in spiritual nourishment. I allow myself to feel. They're wonderful affirmations to give people at the end of trance for them to really be able to then function in the life that they want to have. Okay. So this, those are the books that I'm suggesting for you all. And the seminar is Creative Hypnoanalysis. And like I said earlier, there's a lot of room in this for you to put in other things as long as you keep this model. And I suggest you keep the model. Use the model that's here. And then if there's you know, depending on how many sessions you want to work with people and what you want to charge and so forth and so on, you can work in all kinds of things. And certainly when you're talking to them, you can use your NLP skills if you have them. So, now the objectives are teach the theory of selected techniques of hypnoanalysis. I'm only going to teach selective, all right? There's many. Increase the awareness of the subconscious motivations of health and disease. And that's what Louise Hay brought forth. That if you have something that's chronic, there is a reason for that, that emotionally you got stuck somewhere and the body said, oh, this is a good thing. I can respond this way to this particular situation. And then the third thing is to stimulate the use of hypnosis as an adjunct to other therapies. So this is not the end or the beginning. It is one way of helping someone. Certainly there's massage therapy, there's, you know, Reiki, there's therapeutic touch, which I taught for years. There is now, what do you call it? Smoke therapy, no. Oils and all that aromatherapy and so forth. You must also always be very aware, though, if people, they ask people not to wear perfume and colognes and stuff. So before you do aromatherapy, I'd really find out what their proclivity is if you want to introduce that. So when I started out, people were having incense burning and, you know, all kinds of things going on in their office. Well, I never did that. I did play nice music, soothing music, but I didn't have any outside stimulation because I never knew who was going to walk in the door and what they liked and what they didn't like. So the idea with this, you should have at least 5 hours of hypnotherapy after the dream analysis and regression, and that's for reprogramming. So this, that's what I was taught. This model can take 10, 12, 15 sessions. I usually tell people it can take 8 to 10 sessions, depending on them and how things flow. That's neither right nor wrong, that's just how I've worked at all these years. Now after I learned this, the very first person that called on the phone, I said, do you want to get at the bottom of this problem? And he said, yes. I said, fine, we'll do hypnoanalysis. He said, how much does it cost? I said, oh, just $300. But it's going to take a while. Might take 10 sessions. He said, that's fine with me. Well, I learned from him. I learned from him. And he learned. He learned how to let things go by rather than always hitting him. It was very interesting. And my regressions were, I would be wiped out and so would he, because they would be 3-hour regressions. Well, I learned not to do those things. You know? But I really wanted him to be able to do this, and I wanted him to be able to do it in 8 sessions like I promised, and boy, we worked. So there were I never have had a 45-minute session. A couple psychotherapists in here You can't, hold that thought till next time. Nah, I don't think so. If you're in the middle of something, that doesn't work too well because the mind cancels it. It's done. Now, I want to give you this one, unless you are trained to do this, I'm going to tell you that probably you should avoid anybody that has a mass murderer syndrome. And that would be they have to have 3 things. They have to have bedwetting into, teenage years, setting fires, starts when they're very young, and cruelty to animals. And if you have somebody with those 3 things, I would suggest you send them off to a psychiatrist who deals with that. And who do we know that Bundy was one of those people? These symptoms appear very early. They're very, very young. And if they have one, ask about the other 2 to protect yourself. Because unless you are really licensed and able to deal with that, you don't want any part of it. And for me, I always wanted healthy people who wanted to get better. I wanted normal people who wanted to get better. I did not want psychopaths. I was not interested in that. And you know what? I only had one appear in the whole time because my intention was to help normal people who want to get better. And I would suggest that makes life a lot easier for you as an individual. But you decide on that. So that's kind of how we're going to do this. Now there's the double diagnosis, which is what the client says when they come in and what they actually need. And you get that in the intake. And there's a preliminary information check that goes with that, and it's asking their name, their address, and you'll see me do it, where they live, all that. And I gave you in one of your handouts is something that I have them fill out before they come to see me, which is also name and address and so forth and what they like and what they don't like. But you're going to go over that again. And the preliminary information check, can you imagine why I'm going to ask those questions? Just kind of think it through for a minute. They're sitting there and you say, well, what's your name? How do you spell that? And they think, well, gee, you made the appointment. Why don't you know, you dummy? No. Why do you ask these very, very simple name, address, age? Why do you think you would begin with those kind of questions? Go ahead, Debbie.
Well, part of the reason could be that you're getting them used to answering you positively, and you maintain a certain tone.
Yes.
Takes them into trance.
Well, it can, but it's information gathering, and you get them used to answering your questions and following you along a path. It's very, very good information.
That's what I call establishing rapport. And it's one of the things that we listen all the time whenever I meet any person that's an adult or a child.
Right,
We
right.
have to establish rapport. And that gives an area where we can create an environment where they feel safe in it and I feel safe in that information area.
Right. All right, the third thing is the importance of the initial statements. And please, we are going to write down, one of you is going to volunteer to be my client during this. So I don't know whoever wants to do that, but you write down everything they say. And that's why I ask you to bring pens. What you say is done in black, what you have, questions and so forth, and the form has black ink. What they say is done in blue ink. And things that are maybe your thoughts about it, or important notations that you have, are done in red. And then important words, other important things, or maybe how things are linked. So you want this color coding. The reason you do the abbreviation and the color coding is so that if you have 2 or 3 clients, you want to review their stuff before they come back. But if you have it color coded, it pops off the page for you. You don't have to read every single word again. Now the fourth thing is, in the consultation, is you're going to let them tell the story. And you'll see me do that, and that is, it says, the present problem from the beginning, and you just say to them, tell me all about this. They've told you on the phone what they want, but maybe they've changed their minds and say, come. You just say, why are you here? Why are we going to work together? I got to know, what is this all about, and when did it start? So let them tell their story. Now, interestingly enough, that can last from an hour to an hour and a half. And you have to listen. Clarice mentioned that earlier. You said, oh, isn't that interesting? No, nothing. You listen and you write it down, and you write it down, and if they go too fast, you say, no, I'm writing this all down. And the interesting thing about that is if you write it all down, you have their words, and when that later on something comes up, they say, well, I wouldn't think that. I said, well, you said blah, blah, blah. It's right there, and I highlighted it, you know. It's important for you because to try and do a synopsis of what they said does not give an accurate description of what they were telling you. And if they're telling you with feeling, if we're in the margin, you're going to write crying or pounding. I've had people pound the chair when they're telling me something because they're really, they go into trance. Everybody goes into trance. Whenever in sales, if you go in to sell, you're a salesperson, you want to sell something. The smart thing to do is say, hello, Mr. So-and-so, how you doing today? I'm doing fine. You know what? Before I start what I've got here, I've got to fill out this paperwork. Would you tell me how you got in this fascinating business? They go into trance and they just, and you get all kinds of information. So if you're the salesman, then you feed that back to them and they buy what you're selling. That's sales 101. Well, you're doing the same thing. This is a sale. You want to help them to discover what it is, and you're willing to write it all down in detail. I've had people say to me when we were done after an hour and a half, you know what, I've been to the psychotherapist, I have been to the psychologist, I have been to the psychiatrist, and nobody listened to me like you have. And I said, thank you. That's all I say. I don't say, oh, good for me. I'm thinking, well, doctor was right. You listen to them. Because they need to express it. They need to get it out. I've also had people say, well, you know, like third or fourth session, they're with, well, you know, you asked that question about such and such. Well, I forgot to tell you. I forgot to tell you. And then they tell me, my father, when I was 11, he was having sex with me, but I forgot to tell you. And that has, but by then, and she did forget. She had buried that so deep, but finally it came to the conscious as we were working through some other, just word association and so forth. But she said, before we begin today, I want to tell you, I forgot to tell you this. Now you would think that at 11 you would have remembered that. But no, that has been pushed aside, and what her particular problem was, it was it had a bearing on it. And it didn't come out until then. But I had asked the question in the beginning. So every question here is for a reason. So you say, well, I won't ask that question. Right? No, they're there. So the purpose of the consultation is investigatory. You're investigating. You're an investigator. We got one in the room here. We have two. We have an attorney and a policeman. You're investigating. Well, you're going to get very good at this. Second is avoid analysis. It's not for you to judge at that point. In fact, you may let them do the judging because they're the one that has to heal. And then the sale, closing and getting your fee. And you'll see me do that. The two important things that you're going to pick up in the history taking is, what would you do if you were cured? What would you do if I waved my magic wand and made all this go away? What would you do that you can't do now? Why? What does that give the person? Why? What are you looking
Gives them a future vision of getting better.
And you're looking
And
for
an
motivation.
expectation.
You're looking for motivation. If they can't tell you that, what are you going to do? Play tiddlywinks? I'm serious about that. Somebody said, well, I don't know what I do. You know. And one woman said, oh, I wear a size 10. Oh, I got no motivation immediately. So you need to have some kind of motivation. And then all the emotional areas in that intake. You note those because those are the part of the triggers, part of the things that probably have to be resolved, are what they're getting emotional about. There's something there. All right? So, with that said, do you have any questions thus far? We're going to work in partners. I'm going to ask one of you after we have a break to tell me that you would like to be my client. I'm going to sit in this nice chair. Can you push the seat down on that? No, just no. It's a comfortable chair. I tried it out. It's a comfortable chair. This is going to be the client. And that client is, when they are talking to me, they're going to be talking to me. So you're in the background. So I'll ask you to be silent. You talked about the silence. Therapies are really important. You don't make any comment because only I probably won't make many comments. I will just ask questions. So that as we go through this, it's helpful. They can focus on exactly what it is we need to do. And the intake is the beginning of therapy. When they come in the door, it's the beginning of therapy, but the formal beginning is with the intake. Now, do you have any questions about this at all so far? Fast and furious, huh? All right. What time is it there? Yeah, so we've been sitting for about an hour. So how about if we take a break and, do you want to count out 1, 2, 1, 2 around the room? Please do that.
1,
2.
1, 2.
1,
Okay. 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2. You just sat there, so you didn't know anybody, so this is good. Let's have the ones. When you come back and do yours, just to set it up now, that ones you're going to be the first of the duo to ask the questions, and twos you're going to be the first to be the client for your partners. Okay, I've assigned partners. It's the way it is. There's 6 of you, so that's just the way it shakes out. Okay, so it's. That's all let's have a little break. Let's give a little, some people may be smokers.